The arena world of Zalaris stretched endlessly under the pale green skies, its grand towers reaching toward the clouds like fingers of metal and crystal. Thousands of spectators, from countless alien species, filled the floating stands around the central battle platform. Today was not a day of celebration. It was a day of reckoning. The air was tense, electric, filled with the hum of hovering ships and the low vibration of psychic energy. Queen Thalira, the ruler of the Gyran Empire, stood at the edge of the platform, her tall frame shrouded in shimmering armor that seemed alive, shifting with subtle patterns of light. Her eyes, violet and piercing, scanned the arena as the enemy forces advanced. The coalition of rival alien factions had grown bolder with each passing year, but today they had outnumbered her army, and Thalira could feel the pressure of failure pressing down like a physical weight. Her advisors hovered near, their translucent forms flickering as they whispered suggestions in a language filled with clicks, hums, and mental vibrations. "Your Majesty," said Zelvar, her chief strategist, "we are cornered. The Coalition's psychic shield is stronger than anticipated. If we proceed as planned, we risk total annihilation." Thalira's lips pressed into a thin line. She had faced insurmountable odds before, but this was different. The Coalition's strength was precise, almost surgical. It was clear they had studied her tactics for decades. "Then we must adapt," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "We will not fall today. We will find a way." Across the arena, the enemy's leaders, tall, angular, and frighteningly elegant, watched with cold, calculating eyes. The largest of them, a creature named Varnok, smiled thinly. "Do you see?" he said to his companions, his voice vibrating through the air like a low drum. "Even the great Thalira trembles. Soon this queen will kneel. Soon the empire will belong to us." Thalira raised her hand, and the ground beneath her platform shimmered with psychic energy. Waves of light rippled across the arena, signaling her army to hold their positions. The coalition faltered slightly at the display, but only slightly. They had prepared for this, just as Thalira had prepared for them. In the crowd, hidden among the spectators, a human named Alex Carter watched with a mix of awe and fear. He was a historian and linguist, fascinated by alien civilizations, but always considered unimportant in galactic matters. Humans were minor players, mere observers in a game that spanned stars. Yet here he was, witnessing what could be the end of one of the most powerful rulers in the galaxy. Alex's eyes darted from the Queen to the enemy forces. He noticed subtle inconsistencies in the coalition's formation, a repeated sequence of energy pulses, a pattern in their psychic shields. To most, it was meaningless. To Alex, it was a flaw. A single human, small and overlooked, recognizing what no alien strategist seemed to notice. Thalira's forces advanced, energy blades humming in their hands, psychic shields flaring like liquid fire. The first clash was brutal. Sparks flew as weapons met armor, psychic waves clashing against psychic waves. Thalira moved with grace and precision, her every gesture commanding her army, her mind reaching out to guide them even as she maintained focus on the battlefield. Despite her efforts, the coalition pressed harder. Alien ships swooped down, firing beams that ripped through the arena's defenses. Thalira's generals were overwhelmed. One by one, they fell to the calculated strikes of the coalition. The crowd gasped and the whispers began. "The Queen will fall. The Empire will crumble." Alex's pulse quickened. He could see it all clearly. The coalition had overextended, leaving gaps between their units. If he could only find a way to exploit it, perhaps he could shift the balance even slightly. He had no weapons, no psychic powers, nothing but his mind. But that mind had studied alien patterns for years. He leaned forward, murmuring to himself in human language. "If I can send the correct signal, if I can mislead them." His hands moved over a small device he had carried in his bag, a translator and communicator. he had been using to study the alien languages in real time. It was a long shot, maybe impossible, but it was the only chance he saw. On the battlefield, Thalira felt the pressure mounting. Her forces were cornered near the eastern edge of the arena, where the psychic shields of the coalition were strongest. She knew she had to act decisively, but every choice seemed like a gamble with no safety net. Her eyes flicked to the enemy leader, Varnock, whose psychic presence radiated dominance, confidence, and cruelty. Then something unexpected happened. A brief flicker, a misstep in the coalition's formation, almost invisible but noticeable if one knew what to look for. Alex recognized it instantly. He activated his device, sending a subtle coded signal through the energy waves that crisscrossed the arena. It was a small interference, almost like a whisper in a hurricane, but enough to confuse the coalition's sensors. For a moment, chaos rippled through their ranks. Energy pulses misaligned, shields flickered, and commands overlapped in a confusing tangle. Thalira felt it immediately. Something had shifted just slightly, but enough to offer a glimpse of opportunity. "Now," she whispered, almost to herself. She gestured to her commanders, and her forces surged forward with renewed precision. The coalition faltered under the unexpected misalignment. Thalira's soldiers, encouraged by the momentary advantage, struck with fierce determination. Sparks of hope lit the battlefield. Alex's heart raced. He had done it. He had influenced the course of events, something a human was never supposed to do. But he knew it wasn't over. The coalition was still powerful, still dangerous. His signal had only given Thalira a chance, a small, precious chance. Varnock's eyes narrowed as he sensed the disruption. "What is this?" he hissed, scanning the battlefield with growing unease. His psychic control wavered, but only slightly. He could feel a new factor emerging, unpredictable and small, but effective. He did not yet know what it was, but he would find out soon. Thalira pressed the advantage. Her psychic waves extended outward, probing for weaknesses, guiding her soldiers with a precision that had once been flawless. Now, with the coalition faltering, she could strike decisively at the enemy's leadership. Yet she knew that relying solely on brute strength or psychic power would not be enough. Victory required ingenuity, something she had not expected to find in a human observer. Alex watched as the queen moved with astonishing skill, his respect for her growing by the second. He wanted to help more, to find other flaws, to ensure she survived this confrontation. But he was limited by his human body, by his lack of weapons, by the disbelief of every alien around him. Yet he refused to sit quietly. Every small insight, every observation, every calculation mattered. The crowd roared as the battle intensified. Aliens cheered for their favored factions, their voices blending into a deafening wave. Energy blades clashed, psychic attacks collided, and ships maneuvered with breathtaking speed. Thalira's forces were still outnumbered, but the tide had shifted, slightly, yes, but perceptibly. The queen's reputation, though threatened, remained intact for now. In a quiet corner of the arena, Alex adjusted his device again, sending another subtle signal. This one targeted the coalition's communications, creating minor confusion in their coordination. It was risky. If discovered, he would be immediately captured, perhaps killed. But the risk was necessary. Thalira's life, the fate of her empire, depended on it. The coalition began to react to the disruptions, but too slowly. Thalira seized the moment, launching a counterattack that targeted the enemy's flanks. Her forces moved with a synchronized precision that stunned the spectators. Ships dove and twisted in formation. Psychic shields flickered and shifted like liquid, and alien soldiers executed maneuvers that seemed impossible even to the trained eye. Alex felt a thrill of accomplishment. He had changed the course of events, not with strength or weapons, but with observation, knowledge, and quick thinking. Yet even as hope sparked, he knew that victory was far from certain. The coalition was still dangerous, and Varnock was relentless. The Queen's survival hung in the balance. As the first major clash ended, both sides paused, assessing the new situation. Thalira's forces had survived the initial onslaught, but casualties were heavy. She stood tall, her armor scarring from energy strikes, her eyes scanning the battlefield for the next opportunity. The coalition had regrouped, wary now, but still intent on their mission. Alex realized that he had become an unexpected factor in this galactic drama. A human, unnoticed and underestimated, had influenced the strongest beings in the galaxy. He could feel the weight of what he had done, and the responsibility of what might come next. The Queen looked toward the crowd, sensing something unfamiliar. There, near the edge of the stands, a human, small, fragile, and utterly alone, was observing her with sharp, intelligent eyes. For the first time, Thalira recognized a spark of potential in a species she had always considered weak, insignificant. That spark, she knew, could change everything. The arena quieted for a moment as both sides readied themselves for the next wave of combat. Thalira's gaze lingered on Alex, and she made a silent promise. She would survive this day, not just for her empire, but for the unexpected ally who had appeared when no one else could act. And Alex, heart pounding, knew that the story was far from over. He had shifted the balance, yes, but the war had only just begun. The coalition was strong, the Queen's enemies were relentless, and the universe itself seemed to watch, waiting to see if a single human could truly make a difference. As the energy blades hummed once more and the psychic waves began to ripple across the arena, Alex braced himself. He did not know what would come next, only that he could not stand idly by. Somewhere in the vastness of Xylaris, a human had become part of a story that would be remembered across the stars. And somewhere, Queen Thalira, fierce and unyielding, prepared to reclaim her empire, guided by strength, skill, and now by an unlikely human whose courage and intellect had begun to reshape the galaxy. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, hope had taken root. The arena had fallen silent for only a moment before chaos erupted again. Queen Thalira's forces, bolstered by the small advantage the human had created, surged forward with renewed energy. Across the battlefield, the coalition regrouped, their psychic shields glowing brighter, their weapons humming with deadly precision. Varnock's eyes narrowed as he sensed the subtle disruptions in his plans, a creeping doubt that unnerved even his seasoned mind. Alex Carter stood in the stands, heart pounding. He had no weapon, no shield, no psychic power, but what he did have was knowledge, insight, and the courage to act. He could see the coalition's pattern, the repetition in their signals and the gaps in their coordination. To most, it would be invisible, but to him, it was clear as daylight. He needed to act again and quickly. He adjusted his device and sent another signal, this one more precise. It was subtle, barely noticeable to the naked eye, but enough to cause confusion in the coalition's psychic network. Orders overlapped, shields flickered, and energy pulses misaligned. Even Varnock could not entirely suppress the anomaly. Thalira noticed immediately. A hint of a smile appeared on her face as she realized that this human, small, unassuming, and utterly underestimated, was influencing the battle in ways no one could have imagined. Her soldiers, sensing the slight hesitation in the enemy, pressed harder. "Focus on their flanks," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Strike where they are weakest. Their front is strong, but their sides exploitable." Her troops moved as one, precision honed over decades of training, guided by Thalira's mind and bolstered by Alex's subtle interventions. The coalition faltered, their previously flawless coordination now disrupted by the humans' ingenuity. Varnock snarled, frustration seeping into his voice. "What trickery is this? Something unseen manipulates my forces." He unleashed a wave of psychic energy, hoping to regain control, but it was too late. The gaps had been exploited, and the coalition's ranks were beginning to crumble from within. In a daring move, Thalira personally led a squad of her elite soldiers through the opening Alex had created. They moved like shadows, silent and deadly, striking at key leaders in the coalition's formation. Each blow was calculated, each maneuver precise. The arena shook with the impact of energy weapons and psychic clashes, but slowly, the momentum shifted. Alex watched, unable to contain a thrill of excitement. The human mind had never been meant for such battles, yet here it was, influencing the fate of empires. He realized that his observations, his careful analysis of alien signals and tactics, had given the Queen the advantage she needed to survive. Yet he knew he had to do more. One small miscalculation now could undo everything. Thalira's eyes met Alex's from across the arena. There was recognition, a silent acknowledgement of the human's contribution. He nodded slightly, heart hammering in response. They were allies now, even though they had never spoken. A bond had formed, forged in the heat of combat and the shared pursuit of survival. The coalition, sensing the sudden shift in the battle, attempted a desperate counterattack. Their psychic waves intensified, aiming to overwhelm Thalira's forces in one massive strike. Energy beams lanced across the arena, colliding with shields in a dazzling display of light and power. But Thalira had anticipated this, and Alex's signals had created just enough confusion to allow her soldiers to evade the worst of it. A group of alien generals, previously confident, now hesitated. Orders conflicted in their minds as the subtle interference disrupted their communication. Their soldiers faltered, unsure of which commands to follow. Thalira's forces seized the opportunity, pressing harder with coordinated precision. Alex realized that timing was crucial. He sent one final signal, aimed at the coalition's leadership network. It was a gamble. The signal was complex, requiring perfect execution. If it failed, the human would remain an observer, powerless and irrelevant. But if it worked, it could shatter the coalition's command structure and turn the tide completely. The signal flowed through the energy waves like a whisper in a storm. Commands overlapped, shields misfired, and confusion spread like wildfire. Varnock roared in fury as he struggled to regain control. His confidence wavered, replaced by panic. His coalition, once united and invincible, began to fracture. Some leaders turned on each other, suspecting betrayal. Others hesitated, unsure of which orders to obey. Thalira did not hesitate. She pressed the attack, leading her forces into the heart of the chaos. The battlefield erupted into a maelstrom of energy and motion, but now it was Thalira's storm. She moved with elegance and deadly purpose, striking where the enemy was weakest, exploiting every flaw Alex had uncovered. Alex watched as the coalition's morale collapsed. Soldiers who had once fought with unwavering loyalty now fled or surrendered. Varnock's psychic assaults faltered, his control slipping through his fingers. The arena, once filled with tension and fear, now buzzed with the exhilaration of unexpected victory. In a bold move, Thalira targeted Varnock directly. She projected her psychic presence, intertwining it with the disruptions Alex had created. Varnock's mind struggled against the combined pressure, faltering under the unexpected strategy. He realized too late that he had underestimated not just the Queen, but the human who had become her secret weapon. Thalira struck, a precise psychic wave that disarmed and incapacitated Varnock. He fell to his knees, defeated, as the remaining coalition leaders surrendered. The crowd erupted, alien voices blending into a deafening roar of astonishment and awe. The Queen had survived, her empire intact, and she had done so with the guidance of an unlikely human ally. Alex felt a rush of disbelief and pride. A human himself had influenced the course of an interstellar battle. The implications were staggering. Humanity, long dismissed as insignificant, had shown that intelligence, courage, and ingenuity could rival even the most advanced species in the galaxy. Thalira approached the edge of the battlefield, her armor scarring from energy strikes, her eyes glowing with the intensity of psychic power. She looked up at Alex, her expression unreadable but her gaze filled with recognition. For the first time, she acknowledged that humans, though small and fragile, possessed a strength that was different but no less powerful than any alien skill. "Human," she said, her voice carrying across the arena, "your insight saved my empire. You acted when no one else could." "You are remarkable." Alex blinked, barely able to comprehend the words. He had never imagined that a human could be acknowledged by one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, let alone praised in front of thousands of alien witnesses. Yet here it was, reality bending in ways he had only dreamed of. Thalira extended a hand toward him, a gesture of trust and alliance. "Come," she said. "There is much to discuss, and your knowledge may yet shape the future of not only my empire but the galaxy itself." Alex stepped forward cautiously, his mind racing. He was no warrior, no psychic, no conqueror. He was a historian, a linguist, a student of civilizations. Yet his courage, curiosity, and quick thinking had made a difference that no one could deny. He realized that humans, underestimated and overlooked, had the potential to change the course of history, even across the stars. The aftermath of the battle was both chaotic and exhilarating. Thalira's forces tended to the wounded, repaired damaged ships, and reassessed their strategy. The coalition leaders were detained, their rebellion quashed not through sheer force, but through the clever manipulation of patterns and perception. In the crowd, whispers spread like wildfire. Aliens who had once dismissed humans now regarded them with curiosity, respect, and awe. The concept of a human influencing a galactic-scale battle was unprecedented. Alex, once invisible, had become a symbol of what humanity could achieve when underestimated and unafraid to act. Thalira and Alex convened in a quiet chamber after the battle, the hum of the repaired ships and the distant cheers of the arena filling the background. She studied him carefully, noting his calm determination, his sharp intellect, and the courage that had guided his every move. "You have changed something today," she said. "Not just the battle, but the way the galaxy will see your species. Humans are no longer merely observers. You have proven that ingenuity and bravery can rival power and psychic might." Alex nodded, still trying to absorb the magnitude of what had happened. "I didn't do it alone," he said. "You led the army, made the decisions. I just noticed what others missed." Thalira's eyes softened. "And noticing is the first step to changing the world. You have reminded me that even the smallest, most underestimated beings can shape destiny." Over the following days, the galaxy took notice. Humans, previously regarded as fragile and inconsequential, began to earn respect across alien civilizations. Scientists, historians, and strategists studied Alex's actions, realizing that observation, intelligence, and courage could influence events on a scale previously thought impossible. Thalira offered Alex a permanent role as her advisor and strategist. He accepted, knowing that his life had changed irrevocably. Humanity, through him, had taken its first step toward recognition in a universe that had long ignored it. Together, Thalira and Alex began planning for the future. The Empire had survived, but new challenges would arise. Other factions would attempt rebellion, other threats would emerge. Yet for the first time, the humans would not be mere spectators. They would be active participants, capable of shaping the galaxy in ways that even the most powerful aliens could not predict. Alex often reflected on that moment in the stands, the quiet observation that had sparked a turning point. He realized that courage was not always about wielding weapons, and strength was not always about psychic power. Sometimes, it was about seeing what others could not see, and acting when it mattered most. Thalira, now victorious and wise beyond measure, had learned the same lesson. Power could be challenged, plans could be disrupted, and even a small, underestimated species could alter the course of empires. In the human, she had found an unexpected ally, one who had reminded her that hope and ingenuity could exist in the most unlikely forms. The galaxy watched as the Gyran Empire stabilized, as humans gained recognition, and as the story of a single human who shifted the balance spread across the stars. It became legend, a tale of courage, intelligence, and unexpected influence. And in the quiet moments, when the battlefields were calm and the energy waves settled, Thalira would glance at Alex, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Together, they had proven that the underestimated could rise, that the small could become powerful, and that even in a universe of gods and conquerors, a human could change the game. The future was uncertain, as it always is, but one truth had been established beyond doubt. Humanity, underestimated and overlooked, had shown that brilliance and courage could shape the fate of worlds, and the galaxy would never see them the same way again.